We don't want you doing the dance during services. We're live.
begin our journey with a medley of Arise My Love, Anima Amin, and Dodili. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter's past, and the rain is gone. The flowers appear on earth, the time of singing is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard. Victory bringeth forth her green figs, and the vines in blossom bring forth their fragrance. Arise, arise, my love, my fair one, come away. Arise, my love, come From the book of Joel, and the old shall dream dreams, and the youth shall see visions. And the old shall dream dreams, and the youth shall see visions, and our hope shall rise up to the sky. We must live for today, we must build for
Shabbat Shalom and welcome to our Temple Anshe Chesed Friday evening services. And if you are joining us as part of Temple, wonderful. And if you are joining us from somewhere in the world, we are thrilled to be able to celebrate Shabbat with you. And welcome. We're going to begin, as we do, with lighting of our Shabbat candles. So if you are at home, grab your candles and join in our lighting. We're going to switch our camera views up to, there we go, and light our candles, and Yael will lead us in our blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat is this experience of time, a time to leave behind the stresses and the challenges of the week and the past, and embrace the beauty and the rest and the repose of Shabbat. And so we begin on page 10 as we join in Hinei Matov.
Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Hinei Matov, how beautiful it is when community sits together. And whether that is sitting together in person, and we certainly miss sitting together in person, or it's creating a sitting together that is in the ether, that is part of our electronic sanctuary, our sanctuary that is joining us together via our live stream. And whether we come together in person and we come together on live stream, wherever we are, when we join, and we join in these prayers of Shabbat and welcome, we think of all of the important aspects of our lives that come together and how grateful we are for them, and how beautiful this day of Shabbat is. Ma yafeh hayom, how beautiful this day of Shabbat really is for all of us.
Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat shalom. Ma yafeh hayom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat
this time of the year is perfect for our 6:15 Shabbat, because the sun has gone down, more or less, and in the next few minutes, in the next little while, it'll really turn to darkness. And as we progress our way through our service, we leave behind the week as the sun sets, and we start those wonderful moments of Shabbat, those moments of rest and welcoming Shabbat into our lives. And if we turn to page 20, we join together in Lecha Dodi, that prayer that we welcome Shabbat into our hearts and into our lives.
La 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 lecha dodi, la 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 likat kala, la 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 pnei Shabbat, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad, v'yishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, v'shemo tiferet, v'lichila. Shabbat, lechu v'nachal, ki makor habracha, merosh mi'edem nesucha, sof ma'aseh v'mashvat tila. Shabbat, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, yivorech mi'uri, uri, shir daveri. Kevod Adonai, alayich niglai, yalalai, yalalai lecha dodi, yalalai likat kala, yalalai pnei Shabbat, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boli v'shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha, uv'zohola, toch emuneh, am segula, boli chala, boli chala.
If you haven't done so yet, put a Shabbat greeting into our chat box. Say, Shalom Aleichem, welcome, may peace be on you. And the response, of course, is, Aleichem Shalom, may there peace, may on you, may there be peace. And as we turn to that particular prayer on page 24, we wish each other wonderful, wonderful peace. A peace, of happiness, and of health.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. V'yilelech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. V'yimelech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. V'yimelech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Teitzchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. V'yimelech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn together to page 26 for Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabba, ve'almat yiprach yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, bagala, uv'izman kariv, ve'imeru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach, le'alam almei almaya yitbarach, ve'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'yitramah v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei nekudasha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, ve'imeru amen.
And on page 28, we join in Baruch Hu. Join on page 30 with Ma'ariv Aravim, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, B'chokhmah Poteach Sha'arim, Uvitvuna Meshane Itim, Umachalif Et Hazmanim, Umesader Et HaKochavim, B'mishmerotehem B'rakia Kirtzono, Borei Yom V'Layla, Golel Or Mipnei Choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzivaot shemo. El Chai V'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai, HaMa'ariv Haravim. Everlasting love, you have offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, נגע יומם ולילה. ואהבת אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
As you taught Torah to those names that I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. As we turn to page 34 and join in Shema. Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 42. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'halideinu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'halideinu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'halideinu shomreinu
We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Prayer. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open our lips, that our mouths may declare your praise.
Adonai sfatai, sfatai tiftach, ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai sfatai, sfatai tiftach, ufi agid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei Vneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Mashiach u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atarav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach v'marid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim b'chesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofech olim. Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umidom melach, melech memit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'neman atah l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see, wherever we gaze, that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we didn't know it. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts and to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, in whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha lavadcha b'yirah na'avod. Page 59. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of our soul and our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lacha na'eh lehodot. Page 61, blessing for peace. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul. And may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu mechadon lechol hashalom. Ki
silent prayer, a time to leave the prayer books aside, to look inward to those prayers that are in all of our hearts and our minds, those private conversations that we want to have with God, the things that we want to say that are between us and whatever it is that is God that has created us, in whatever way we think about that, or whatever way we think about God. And so we take some time in silence to express those thoughts, express those ideas, some time to sit quietly with our thoughts, express our hopes and our prayer.
Yehiyu leratso imrefi vehyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai
We turn together to page 253, and we think of all those all over the world who are battling the ravages of COVID-19. We think also of those in our own communities, our friends, our family, who are facing this terrible illness. We ask God for strength for them, their families, and all of our brave medical professionals who tirelessly work towards our healing. And we think of not only those who are battling with COVID-19, but also all those who are ill. And whether it is an illness of the heart, the mind, the body, the soul, as we direct our prayers, our energies of healing, we think of Greg Bennett, Michael Byron, Andrea Kempner-Blake, Richard Sharon, Ruth Bostov Coleman, Sandra French, Carol Golbo, Judith Goldman, Scott Gordon, Joan Harf, Patricia Heibel, Michelle Wolf, Zachary Jackson, Fred Kern, Carol Love, Dane Marcinkowski, Stephanie, Luke, Trey, Abigail, and Charles Nobles, Cheryl Perry, Debbie Perry, Eric Perry, Bob Bush, Josh Whitmer's house, Emma Lua Phillips, Peg Pulowski, Fran Porras, David Renberg, Will Rosenthal, Carl Sion, Martha Snyder, Steve Toddleben, Timothy Tillman, Lorraine Wellington, Gary Williamson, and Rebecca Gottlieb. And if you have other names to share, please add them into our chat box as we join together and we push our energies of healing out to the world, to all who need them. Let's join together. Shabbat Shalom. Passages of time and dates are important. Our whole Jewish calendar is filled with them. And this Shabbat, the Shabbat that we read, Ki Tisa, is important too. Not particularly a Jewish reason, but maybe an altogether Jewish reason. It is the Shabbat on which we did our very first live stream last year. That time where we were testing and we didn't know what was going to happen, and we knew that we needed to pivot and to change and to do things differently than we'd ever done them before. Who knew we would be filled with a year of so many challenges, and certainly our challenges are not over. Although with vaccines being more and more available, we see the possibilities of a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I've said it before that we as Jews have spent our entire history, spanning perhaps thousands of years, learning and going through this process of changing and adapting over and over and over. In fact, each generation faces its own version of a need to change. The Judaism that the former slaves felt as they and practiced or experienced as they left Egypt was not the Judaism that existed once they settled in the land of Israel. The Judaism of the First Temple period was different than the Judaism in the Second Temple period. The Judaism of the first century in the Common Era, following the destruction of the temple and the disbursement of the Jewish people all over the world, was different from before. It was different from what would come. It was different from the later Middle Ages or the Renaissance period. It was certainly different than the Judaism that was practiced in the Enlightenment period, and which again was different than the Judaism practiced in the modern period. And of course, the Judaism that existed before the Holocaust, before the Shoah, was radically different than what existed and what exists as we experience it afterwards. So if anything has been consistent, it has been that Judaism is really this evolving and changing and growing expression of faith. And along with the change, there has been resistance. In every age, people have resisted the change. Probably for the best, because that resistance creates a protection from changing things too quickly, from changing things too radically. The founders of early reform were pretty radical. They made really, really serious changes. They changed the structure of the synagogue buildings. They changed the structures of the service, the content of the service. They changed how we dressed, how we sang, how we prayed. All of it was changed. In our own experience, our own reform movement continues to do radical change in the Jewish world. Just in our own lifetimes, in the last generation or so, we have radically shifted the importance of synagogue life, of spirituality, of understanding who is part of the Jewish community and extending that as broadly as we can. We created pathways for interfaith couples to raise their children within the synagogue as full participating members of our community. For the first time in probably 2,000 plus years, we made conversion open, exciting, welcoming, embracing of people who wanted to come and experience what it meant to be part of this treasure we call Judaism. The State of Israel was created in 1948. The Jewish Agency for Israel, which morphed into the nascent government of the state, decided that it would be the realm and the dominion of the traditional rabbis who lived in that area, who would supervise all the issues of personal status, including who would get married and marriage and conversion and burial and all of those kinds of things. And of course, as the Shoah ended and we had a huge influx of refugees into Israel whose Jewish status was unprovable, you could only go by what they said, they were pretty lax, and people were accepted as part of the Jewish community just based on whatever they said. And they established what we now know as the law of return, which meant that anybody who had a Jewish grandparent was welcome to come to the land of Israel and settle and experience statehood and citizenship in their own land. Now, of course, this conflicted because traditional Jewish understanding of Jewish identity is based on who your mother is. If your mother is Jewish, you're Jewish. If you go through a formal conversion process that follows all the halachic guidelines, that too qualifies you as being Jewish. But under the law of return, we started to see this sort of two kinds of a system. You had one system that allowed people to move to Israel if they had a single Jewish grandparent, which was the defining way that the Nazis defined who was considered to be Jewish and who was not. And so when Israel was created, they felt, look, if it was something that you were persecuted for by the Nazis, it should also be something that you can benefit from by being able to come to the land of Israel. And this really was the way it existed for decades and decades, that the traditional rabbinate, the Orthodox rabbis in Israel, controlled and supervised who was able to be married and who was not. In Israel, there is no such thing as a secular wedding. There's no civil wedding. You can only be married in Israel by a religious authority, whether that authority is Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Baha'i, etc. It has to be done through a religious venue. But what of these people who moved to Israel who had a Jewish grandparent, but who they themselves were not considered part of Jewish life by the Orthodox rabbis? It created enormous struggle and continues to today. Many couples would go on a honeymoon first. They would go to, the closest was Cyprus or some other place, maybe Europe or North America, and they would have a wedding outside of Israel, which would be internationally recognized as a legal wedding when they returned. This past about 20 years ago, the Supreme Court in Israel decided that any conversion done outside of the land of Israel by a recognized Jewish organization, a member of a recognized Jewish group, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, etc., would qualify that person to move to Israel under the law of return. The problem was that any conversions done inside the land of Israel by a non-Orthodox rabbi were excluded. So if you were a non-Jewish person who had moved to Israel or gone to Israel for some experience and you had fallen in love with the Jewish people and liberal Judaism and converted through those auspices, you would not be able to then stay in Israel under the law of return. And that's the way it's been for the last 20 years. And this week, the Supreme Court finally came down with a ruling that said, in fact, conversions held in Israel by liberal rabbis also qualified. Now, you can think, this is a minor thing. But in the world of progress, in a world in Middle East cultures where you have incredibly long histories, and you have traditions that are very difficult to change and that take generations to evolve, it's a significant time. This week, we read Ki Tisa, and in Ki Tisa, we read the story of the census. It's known as the story of the half shekel. The idea that everyone in the community would take their half shekel, a small coin that pretty much everybody could have, and they would drop their half shekel into the bucket, and you would count the number of half shekel pieces and then be able to create your census. Wonderfully egalitarian experience. One that meant that everybody, regardless of their status, could be counted. That everybody could put their half shekel into the box and be recognized as a full group and member, as part of the community of Israel. Clearly, throughout history, dating all the way back, no one group has a monopoly over how Judaism should be practiced. No one group has the authority to say, this is how it is. Judaism has always functioned in a non-hierarchical way. We don't have the equivalent of a pope. We don't have the equivalent of a hierarchy of rabbis. What Judaism has taught us is that those who resist that change, that evolution, that growth, are really doomed to be overrun by the change. Because there hasn't been a significant change in the Jewish world that has been resisted and then has been rescinded and forgotten. No. Change is always moving forward. Change is the only thing that we can consider to be constant. It's been the success and the key to our success as a reform movement, and really as Judaism as a whole. That's been our success story. So this week, as we each dig into our pockets and we take that half shekel and we put it into the box so that we too can identify ourselves as part of the Jewish people. It takes courage. It takes courage to not only face the challenges, but to be creative and to answer them. So as we mark this first year, we look forward to a time when we can once again be together. What that will look like, we don't know. It will probably be different than anything we've done before because we always move forward. We don't move back. So, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom. We are going to turn now to page 282 for Aleinu.
It's up to us to call ourselves to task, to sing what's good and true, to bring about redemption. It's what we were freed to do. For what's the point of being here if we're not moved to change our ways? Aleinu l'shabbat, it's time to live our praise. We are carrying the stories of the ones who came before. But stories will be told of us when we are here no more. We commit ourselves to action. It brings meaning to our days. Alleluia, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise. It's up to us to own the vision. We are an answer to a call. It's up to us to live the words we speak for the benefit of all. It's up to us to bow down deeply. There's a broken world to raise. Alleluia, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise. Alleluia, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise.
Our thoughts turn now to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and of death. We're in the period of Shloshim for David Kerr and Irving Kalbeck. And we observe the following yahrzeits on this Shabbat: Isidore Lefkowitz, Dorothy Emmerman Brody, Bennett Nussbaum, Saul Waxelbaum, Richard Eisenberg, Blanche Solomon, Hyman Oldstein, Marguerite Horwitz, Isabel Sillen, Alice Schuster, Werner Baum, Hyman Cohen, Fred Voss, Nathan Levy, Max Solomon, Max Fisher, Ida Prussian, Bertha Aaron, Abraham Morris, Gertrude Cohen, Erwin S. Levy, Sidonie Evans, and Clara Schaffner. If you have other names that you would like to add to our list of yahrzeits or memory, please add them into our chat box so that we can think of all those who have died and on whose shoulders we have the honor of standing as we turn to the words of Kaddish on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Ba'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chai echon uvyom echon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevurach le'elam l'armei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who grants peace in the high and distant heights grant peace for us, for all Israel, for all the world. And together we say, Amen. A few announcements this evening. Services this weekend are in memory of Fran Keim, Hans Horowitz, Marguerite Horowitz, Max Fisher, Erwin S. Levy, and any donations that were made to our Flower Fund were used for our electronic communications. I want to thank Brad Ford in our sound and audio visual booth. Thank you, Brad, for making our services run smoothly. I want to thank you, Elle, for your beautiful music. And we hope that you'll join us right after services for our Shabbat Oneg. I posted that link at the very top of the chat box on the YouTube channel there. And tomorrow morning we have Torah study at 11 o'clock, and we hope you'll join us for that. And Sunday we have Gesher classes. Tuesday evening we have our Talk Amongst Ourselves, where we will be discussing the documentary movie called Monkey Business, the story of the creators of Curious George. Little did you know, maybe, that the authors of Curious George were two Jewish refugees who fled the Nazis, and one of the very few things that they were able to take with them on this heroic journey was the manuscripts to the Curious George books. And so it's a fascinating story. So we're having a watch party to watch the documentary on Monday night, and or you can watch it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. You can watch it yourselves. We'll watch it together on Monday if you wish to do that. And then on Tuesday, we'll join in a conversation about it. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece. The style of the documentary includes animation in the style of the Curious George books. It's a brilliantly done piece. Hope you'll join us. I believe that is all the announcements we have. We are going to conclude this evening with Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live eternally.
Amen, amen, Am Yisrael Chai, 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 oh, Davinu Chai, oh, Davinu Chai, oh.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll see you soon.